and I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present and thank everyone for attending. Just some housekeeping, because some background noise sometimes can filter through from various sessions. Be good to just mute yourself. And if there is questions or there are questions that would like to be raised, you can simply raise your hand like I'm doing now, and then we'll pick that up. But there's also a chat function which will run throughout the course of the evening, and if anyone will be monitoring that chat as we move through. So if people are want to put questions in there, Travis will stop at times and ask for questions. But there's some questions at the end which we can pick up as well. So firstly, thank you for everyone for jumping in. This was a presentation we wanted to hold at the Club Forum in February, which would have been a nice way to gradually move into a season of transitioning juniors to seniors. But due to unfortunate circumstances, Travis was unavailable. So it's timely that we're actually able to bring this to you now, because next Wednesday, which is the second part of this session, we'll be looking to gather feedback on the competition structure review and particularly the junior age groups, which we put in place for 2024, and what that looks like moving forward in 2025 and 2026. So that's across all the junior grades, and also under 19s and under 18s, which we've run this year. We'll give some feedback and some stats and results about what we've been able to achieve this year, but we're also really keen to gather some feedback from clubs as we go into some planning for 2025. So tonight, Travis Switzer, who conducted our competition structure review last year, will present to us. Trav's done a lot of this work across a number of competitions. There's a whole lot of data, which is probably based pre-2021 and backwards, which talks to relevant age groups and bits and pieces. But tonight, Travis is more going to focus on the tips of supporting clubs, players, coaches, trainers, parents, you name it, transitioning out of juniors and into seniors. And that pathway, as we appreciate, is something we're all really working forward towards. And as I said, we'll get some feedback next week about what we've been able to do. But tonight's session is particularly around tips and information. The presentation will be recorded. Maddie's going to record it for us. And also what we will be doing is providing the slides as well at a later time. So without any further ado, I don't want to hold people up. Thank you. It's probably easier to be sitting at home in a warm house as opposed to a freezing cold club room somewhere. Travis, over to you.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight as well, and the opportunity to present some of the stuff that I've been working on over the years in relation to transitioning, or the best practice of transitioning junior players across to your senior club. Tonight, I'm going to bit of a welcome first, bit of an introduction about myself. I'm going to talk about club culture and why I think it's really important to develop a culture that is family friendly, is a club that parents and prospective players look at and wanting to join. So I think club culture and values play a big part in being a club of choice. Then I'm going to talk about some tips around transitioning juniors to seniors and the role that each senior club and junior club can play, and I guess working together to get the best out of your structure. And I'll talk a bit about the football department structure that I've seen works really well, a bit of a best practice model. And Brett just explained that happy to take questions along the way. So if someone wants to just raise their hand or take themselves off mute and jump in and interrupt at any stage, please do so. And I'll stop throughout the night as well and ask for questions too. Most of you would have met me during I undertook some of the work in terms of the review for the competition review last year. And as Brett spoke about, I believe you've got a session next week that'll go more into the structures and age groups and things like that. Tonight is really more about your club and what you can do to set yourselves up for success in this space. I think most of you have seen this slide before. We've done lots of work, both in regional Victoria and in metropolitan Victoria, at the moment working with most of the metropolitan leagues. And I've worked with over 200 clubs, probably a lot more than that, to be honest. And I have presented this presentation to 3 or 4 leagues already this year, and I'm getting asked to do a few more as well. So looking forward to tonight and having a chat with you about what I think can work. So just as I spoke about before, we're going to start with club culture and values. I think most clubs have probably worked through this process, but I'd say in the last 6 months, I've done a lot of surveying, I've done a lot of market research in clubland, and there's still a lot of clubs that don't have values set and don't have a bit of a plan or a strategic plan. And quite often when you do a strategic plan, you'll set some values. But I think it's really important for clubs to set values for your entire club. They guide your beliefs, attitudes, and can also really guide your behaviour and behavioural standards, which I think are really important in developing the best culture you can. The other thing I do see quite a bit is that senior football teams will have their own set of values. Then the netball girls will have their own set of values, or netball teams. Also, each individual team within a junior structure might have their own values as well. And quite often they might not match up with the whole club. So I think setting one set of values for the whole club and engaging as many as you can through that process is really important. In this day and age, it must be a safe and family-friendly place to be. So having the right culture, as I spoke, is really important. And that one of those main things is that parents and prospective players can look at your club and know that it's going to be a safe, a fun place to be, and it's going to be friendly in terms of family-friendly as well. Kids will want to know, and parents will want to know that they're going to be cared for and nurtured, and that there's actually some genuine interest from you in caring for their kids and for themselves. But also you're going to nurture them and make them better people, or help to make them better people, to shape them as footballers as well, and to see them develop skills, leadership skills, all the great things that come with sport. I think it's really important that alcohol and drug management, you have really solid practices in place around this stuff. You're known as an inclusive club. They're accepting of all people. You have really strong behavioural standards at your club, and you have great coaching and high quality coaches. I think there's some really key ingredients. There's some others, but I think there's some really key ingredients in establishing the right culture. So the way to set values and the process I go through with clubs, and I do this quite often. I'm doing about 10 at the moment with clubs, and I've done some of the clubs within Outer East as well. Best way to start is to survey your people, survey your players, parents, members, coaches, volunteers, and other stakeholders about what values do they want the club to stand for, to be known as, to role model to the community. I'd also run a workshop with your players and coaches and get them in a room and set those values together. One of the things that you shouldn't do is, as a committee, just sit around the desk or around a table or committee room and do them yourselves. Yes, it's great to have committee values for your committee. Also, don't sit at your computer and set values for the whole club yourself. They'll just be a small portion of your club. It's really important that you involve your coaches, your players, and all of your key stakeholders when you're setting values. This is a very summarised version. There's a lot more to this, but establish a set that are memorable as well, and not to have too many words and things that aren't easy to understand. And things like acronyms and catchy phrasing and even images are really important and can help sell a message out to the community as well. So this is one that I've worked on. I've taken out the club logo, but this is a club that I work with which has come a long way, to be honest, in terms of their culture. And they're still a work in progress, but they have come a long way. So they've put together their catchphrase is stronger together. These were set through a whole heap of workshops run through the whole club, and also surveys of players and club members and ex-players. The values that they landed on were unified. So from the committee room to the netball courts and footy field, they're aligned. That club was very separated and segregated when we first started doing some work there. Netball and football, and junior footy and youth football as well, all quite separate. Committed to the other one, inclusive and respect. So you can see those are the four things that they've landed on. Every club will be different, but I'm sure some of those resonate with all of you tonight. And their purpose is to provide the community with an inclusive, successful and family-friendly sporting club. Now, I know they use these values all the time now, and when new players come to the club, they're in their contracts. They have them up in the rooms. They have them up in the social rooms, but also the club rooms and change rooms. They also have codes of conduct now in place for each group, so players, coaches, volunteers, committee, non-playing members, and supporters. So codes of conduct for each group that links to those values, and they use it in all their communication. So stronger together and those values on socials, websites, all sorts of different things. Does everyone understand what I'm sort of getting at here? Is that, be a club of choice, and being a club of choice, these are the things that you really need to stand for, and communicate to the community as much as you can that we are an inclusive club. We are a unified club. We're inclusive and we're respectful and we care. So those are the sorts of messages that parents, players, prospective sponsors, partners want to see. It's a very summarised version of how to set some values, but any questions about any of that? And I can also happy to take questions offline too, Brett, of any of the clubs tonight. If they want to call, and Travis, I've got survey templates and all sorts of things that clubs are more than happy to have access to. Please reach out. And I can give you some more guidance on how to go about it too. So just the meaty part of tonight, just around the transition of players from juniors to seniors. And there's a lot more too than just juniors as well. So we've got to talk about schools, Auskick, juniors, youth, all the way through to senior footy. So I did want to point out tonight that some of the stuff I'm going to talk about will be the things that I've gleaned and learned over the years, but also might be best practice. And I know it's not what one size fits all for every club. And I know there's some really tough challenges for clubs out there. And some of the challenges that some clubs have are insurmountable. And I understand that some clubs don't have juniors, don't have local schools. It's a real battle. So please don't think I don't understand that there's some real challenges around some of this, but we do know that a number of our clubs we're talking about tonight do have an opportunity here to be better at it, and to be better at what we do currently. And that is that if you've got access to a junior club, if you've got access all the way from Auskick to senior footy, and you think you could be doing it better, I've got some real tips for tonight. And those clubs that have EOYs or even juniors in another league, it's still very similar. The process is quite similar still. For those clubs that don't have juniors, there is some other challenges, but I still think you can take out some things out of tonight that will work for your club too.
Trav, I might just jump in there. Andy and I met with AFL Vic today about some planning for next year in Auskick centres, and pleasing Andy jump in if I miscue, but most of our clubs, if not all of them, have an Auskick centre related directly to, which is similar by name, to all our junior clubs and then into our senior clubs. So our pathways are pretty well established, which is really positive. So AFL Victoria are pretty positive around that. Andy, did you want to add anything to that?
Nah, I think that was about a good summary.
Yep, perfect. That's good. Well, this should resonate with everyone then. This is good. It's just a slide that I've shown over the years just in terms of what most clubs' current model is and what a preferred model is. And I would say a large portion of clubs, and I'm not saying all clubs, because I know there are some clubs that are doing an amazing job in this space. And I know some clubs back in Gippsland and in metropolitan Melbourne who are all over this and have, I think every player might be a 1 point player. So but there are so many clubs out there that it's working like a funnel at the moment. So we have, obviously we have the schools, and obviously AFL Victoria work really closely with the schools to try and penetrate those numbers to get kids into Auskick. So AFL going to schools, it'd be lovely, and I will talk about that in a minute, but I think it'd be lovely if clubs had a touch on that at least, and understanding of what programs are happening through the AFL at their local schools, and talk to Brett and the staff there around that, because I'm sure we can increase the communication if that's a problem, or if we need to improve that. Once they get into the Auskick though, they're yours, and I think it's important to note that the senior club, junior club needs to have a touch on Auskick programs as well. And as you can see, what I'm saying here is that year by year, most clubs, or a number of clubs, it's a funnel now, and it's shortening, and we're losing players through those age groups. So into the youth footy, where we're really starting to starting to get really narrow numbers, and then the number of senior footy clubs have got a lot have just got are reliant on recruiting from outside the area. So that can be a real challenge. And then what I prefer to see, and I think clubs would prefer, is a pipeline. So there is no narrowing of the participant numbers, and it is a pipeline. But for that to work, clubs need to have a positive influence, and you need to actually commit time, energy, resources, money into these programs. And it can't all be into your senior football programs. And I'm not saying all clubs do this, but I do know a number of clubs commit so many of their resources to senior football. I run an exercise with most clubs I work with when I'm doing a strategic plan, and roughly, and I do a percentage of how much time, effort you put into each one of those categories. And quite often, clubs are at over 60% with senior footy, and it just keeps getting less and less as you work through up to Auskick, where some clubs are doing nothing, 0%. From a senior point of view, a lot of clubs are doing 0. If I was to set up a brand new club, and I think everyone would agree that you'd probably turn that upside down, and you really should be spending as much time and energy, or even more so, and creating a lasting pipeline of players from Auskick all the way through to senior football. And if we're not spending time and putting energy and resources into that, we can't expect that we're going to have a heap of players come to our senior club.
Can I just pop in on that? AFL Vic have got an unders program, which is coming from Auskick to the junior club. So that's something that the junior clubs can get onto and support, because it's like, I think we've got 160 kids that could be junior footballers from Auskick for next year. So it's important that we do kind of get on with our Auskick and have them part of our clubs. So that's me.
Yeah, no, good. That's a good point, Andy. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. You need to have a touch on everything, and I'll talk about how I think that can happen, but also a club structure where that actually almost forces these things to happen. So just some research that Australian Sports Commission did back in 2017, and I think Bear's seen some of this stuff. And I know that the Junior Matchday Guide that was put together years ago had a similar research project. But it's important to note why young people play sport. The most important thing is they're having fun with their friends, and they're actually having social interaction and developing new friendships. That's the number one. They need to be having fun. It needs to be exciting. It can't be a stress to them. It has to be almost a stress relief. A lot of kids also want to just experience a challenge of it and achievement and personal responsibility and improving their skills. If we can remember all 5 of those things and do those well and provide an environment where we're doing those, you're well on the way to creating the right culture. And why do kids drop out? So cost of participation can be one, and that's something that we're all clubs, and even myself and leagues, we need to be really considerate of. Time pressures. So yes, absolutely, employment, academics, and even socialising. So some as kids get older, they are able to drinking age and driving age and those types of things. So yes, we do lose some kids to that. Sport can be sometimes seen as being too competitive, and there's too much of a commitment. So balancing those things and making sure you're aware of those things are important. There's also some real challenges, and I'm sure clubs have worked through this, but lack of support from family and around the structured environment that a netball club will provide. And some kids just feel like they're not good enough to continue playing. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of kids who drop out that actually are good enough and have got the skills. They probably just don't have the confidence, and they haven't been nurtured properly, I guess, through the years. And just the last statement: kids are more likely to stay in sport if they have positive experiences, and that's why I talked about club culture and making sure it's fun, safe, friendly. That's just as important as providing coaches that make them or turn them into better players. Making sure you create that culture is so important. And clubs and coaches need to understand these things and be aware. It needs to be at the forefront of their mind when they're running a junior program. Now, these next slides have got so many points on them. I'm not going to go through each one of them. I just want this as information for each club, but just what can senior clubs do to assist in different areas? So I've just got that around the wrong way, but I'll start with this one. So what can the senior club do to assist? These are just some ideas, some very small things. It's not rocket science, but it's like a checklist to just make sure you're doing each one of these things. And I'd say most clubs, or a large portion of clubs, are not at the moment. So a senior club could arrange for senior players to attend the local Auskick Centre and assist in coaching and umpiring and wearing the club colours and the club shirt. Could arrange for NAB Auskick kids from a local junior club to play halftime of your senior club's league match with a barbecue event for players and parents. What can senior clubs do to assist 9s to 12s? Assist the junior club at local junior rego days. Provide players or support to people to support the efforts of the junior club in recruiting junior players, and senior players to volunteer a few hours during the season at key events. What can senior clubs do for under 13s to 16s? Hold barbecues for junior players after training. Provide players to conduct training sessions for junior team. Invite junior players to senior club matches. And 16s to 18s, and this is, as you can see, this is starting to ramp up as the kids get older. But you've at least had a touch on each one of these kids through the years, and they're starting to build relationships and a level of comfort with the people at your senior club. And hopefully, the message from the senior club people is that this is a great, fun environment, and you're actually going to learn a lot about leadership and being a better footballer and better person. So what can the senior club do once the kids are starting to get older? So actively look to provide a player ex-player to coach the 16s junior team. And I know a number of clubs are doing this already, and this really works. And it can be a bit of a slow burn, but I've seen clubs who have got almost a separate junior club to a senior club. And the first step to building the relationship and improving the relationship has been this one at the top, has been the senior club saying, okay, we've got to put some skin in the game here. We're going to work hard. We're going to put some coaches in. And then 2-3 years later, you'll see those clubs actually almost become one organically. And for those clubs that need to build a relationship where the relationship's not as strong, that one's a really good one to work on. Establish regular communication with the players, 16 players, such as letters at the start of the season wishing them all the best. I mean, they're only small touches, but they're important. Touching base and inviting to senior club events where there might be no alcohol, or end of season. So, you might have a meet the coaches day, and it might be meet the coach, senior coach, and you involve the 18s and 16s as well. And then congratulating at the end of the season as well. Invite the 16s and 18s to train with the senior squad on occasion. So I went to South Mornington last Thursday night, and I saw this happening, and I actually hosted a parent information night, and the place was buzzing. The kids had an absolute ball, and some of the things we're going to talk about in a minute, those things were falling into place just through running training events like that. They all had pizzas together, and we had a chat after. It was great. Have the senior club league coach provide support to the 16s and 18s coaches and take sessions. So, being a mentor for the coaches. Hold a parent information session with parents to give them more information about the club. That's that opportunity to present your club values and the things that you're doing within the club that sells the case of you being the club of choice. Because I think you'll all agree there's so many clubs that you're competing against. And to have these information nights, you've got to put your best foot forward, and you're selling your club. And don't just assume that because they're playing for the same, I'm sure you don't, the same colours that you wear, or they are your aligned club. They are looking. Parents are looking. Kids are looking all the time. They're not just going to make a decision without being sold a vision of what your club's going to be and what you're going to provide them moving forward. Include all under 16s, 18s players from local junior clubs in a mail-out email database. Obviously, need to seek permission first, but I think most of your databases, Brett, there's, I think you can click a thing out, yep, in Play HQ to make sure you can do those things. I think this one's a really good one, inviting 16s and 18s and parents to a senior game and have a club lunch or some sort of event each year. I think it's a great opportunity, and you could even have your parent information session on the same day, and establish a pre-season timeline. So make sure you have that ready nice and early, that you, before the kids break away, that you actually have a timeline around, okay, we're starting, this is our coach for under 18s next year. You can introduce the coach as early as you can. I know it's not always, doesn't always fall into place like that. But if you can have that your coach has been announced and you've got a pre-season schedule before the kids even leave for their break during summer, because they do start to think about cricket and other sports and tennis and those types of things, or even thinking about not even coming back. So if you have a schedule ready and the kids know when training starts again, and they can have something to look forward to. Are there any questions about? Go for it.
Yeah, Trav, I was just going to ask, maybe in terms of an engagement piece, just ask if some of the clubs that are on the line now want to offer up any of the, I guess the things that they do to, from senior clubs back down to juniors. What do they do to assist, any way, shape or form, if they're willing to share that now? They can all jump off Moot and go for it, or you can keep going.
I'm sure a lot of these things are already being done. It's just how well you do them, and make sure they're well organised, well advertised. I've been asked to present at player information nights before, and the invitation hasn't even gone out, and I've turned up to a couple of clubs, and the kids are there and there's no parents there, and it hasn't been advertised properly. It actually looked worse for the club than it did better. So if you're going to do these things, just do them well. And remember, this is a very small amount of time and effort that is such an important sales pitch at that time that they're deciding where they're going to play. And I know you guys spend so much time recruiting senior footballers, and you put your best foot forward and you meet with them, you have coffees with them. Sometimes you meet with players 2, 3, 4, 5 times. If you put as much effort into the information nights and present your club in the best light for junior players and retaining all your junior players, I'll guarantee you'll have better success. And I'm not saying this, please, again, I'm generalising here. I'm not saying this is every club, but my experience is that a lot of clubs spend more time recruiting senior players than actually trying to keep their own junior players. What can the senior club do just overall to assist junior clubs in general? So we'll talk about, there's all different models, but you could appoint a junior club liaison officer and offer a senior club representative. That's if you have separate committees to sit on the junior club committee. Invite a junior rep to sit on your senior club committee as well. Explore an induction process or a youth player camp. I know a number of clubs are doing some of these things. A number of clubs are now, to set themselves apart, getting some expert coaches in during pre-seasons and having not so much a youth camp, but having trial days and all sorts of things with even ex-AFL players. They're the clubs that are putting so much time into these things and investment, and they're the clubs that are having real success in recruiting new players, but also keeping the current players that they have. Implement a player welfare program, which we talked about before, around all sorts of different things. Could be mental health, nutrition and dieting, all sorts of things that will set you up and your club for a better culture. And this is a great one. I saw South Mornington had this in place this year, and I could see the interaction that was going on, almost like they had known each other for years, some of the players and the kids. They had a mentor program, a buddy system. So, players buddy up with a youth player. And then you buddy them up at the start of the year, and then you spend time together. They can spend time together, talking together at training, and even look at each other during games and stuff like that. Any questions about any of that? Sorry, I just had these in the wrong order, these slides. So now, quite often we talk about what can senior clubs do, and I think it's important to note that the junior clubs also play a significant role in the relationship. So what can junior clubs do to assist? So, building strong relationships with players, parents, and the senior club. with the senior club is imperative to age transition. So, with junior, so equally the senior club has to invest, the junior club has to invest as well for this relationship to work best. What can the junior club do to assist Auskick? So again, quite often it sits with the junior club, this piece, but it'd be great if the senior and junior club were working together on this. So, distributing player pathway documents to Auskick participants around, okay, this is our club, this is our junior club and senior club, this is what it looks like. Invite the top end youth players to be part of your club's program. So, what else can your junior club do to assist 9s and 12s? Discuss with junior players that they may go on to play with their aligned senior club. So even having a document and just even starting a conversation with the players that, hey, yeah, you're under 9s and 12s, but just want you to know that we're attached to this senior club, and our job is to try and keep you as players and nurture you and make you make you feel like you're having a great experience so that you end up playing senior football for our club one day. It's just, I guess, planting the seed that, there's a pathway for the kids moving forward and for the parents to understand there's a pathway. Invite your senior club to be part of the youth program, including coaching. So yes, senior clubs can say we want to be involved, but if the junior club aren't willing participants, then it can't work either. So it's really important that the junior clubs be proactive too. I think both clubs need to be a bit more proactive in that space, and educating the parents on how to encourage and support their children to participate long-term in football and why it's important, and not just football, being part of a club and what that brings, being part of a sporting club and what that brings for each person. And I know most people in this room, including myself, grew up in and around a sporting club, and it's provided me with so much and has helped me throughout my whole life in terms of leadership, life skills, all sorts of different things. So what can junior clubs do to assist 13s to 15s? Have a players' night dinner at the senior club to experience a senior team training night. Encourage parents to help young people balance the demands on their time to allow time for sport. So building relationships with parents and communicating as much as you can effectively with parents is so important. Invite the senior club to be part of your program, including coaching. For 16s and 18s, again, it's just on the other end. It's vice versa, but training at local senior club grounds several times through the year, if you're not already at the same facility. I know that can be the case with some clubs. Celebrate local transition successes. So junior players going on to win individual awards and honours. Make sure you celebrate those things and keep the connection moving with some social media posts, and those types of things can really help. And I know some clubs do this really well. They count games of service through the whole club from under 9s all the way through to senior footy, and those are the clubs that really get it. And I see some of those, some guys have played and girls have played huge milestone games, like 500, 600 games, and that has started through the junior program. Send a letter to all previous under 16s in January, February, providing the senior club contact details and encouraging them to register with the club. And what can the junior clubs do just in general? So support and encourage the efforts of the local senior club. Provide contact details of under 18 players to senior clubs. That's making sure you can. Invite a senior club rep to sit on the junior club's committee. Offer a junior rep to sit on the senior club committee. Hold a joint function. It could be a quiz night, gala day, and we've talked about inviting the senior club committee to key junior club events or functions. Are there any questions about any of that? Does that all make sense? So this is a club. This is just want to talk about footy ops structures. So this is probably best practice, but this is a club called Blackrock. Some would know who they are. They're not far away. They're sort of neighbours, and I know Brett would know of Blackrock. Recently, they've brought in they've had Auskick for about 4 or 5 years, but recently they've brought in some new junior teams, and now they've got, I think, 5 junior teams. So the last 2 years, they've just started juniors, and they wanted to develop a structure that they thought would be best practice. And given they were a new club starting out from scratch almost, it gave them that opportunity. Not every club's going to be able to run with a structure like this. I get it. but it'll throw some ideas in your head around how I think and how a lot of clubs who are best practice and do this well, how they're set up. So having a director of footy is so important for every footy club. I can't stress this enough. There's so many. I know it's hard to find a good footy director, but there's so many clubs where the club president is trying to do both those roles, or the senior coach is trying to do both the director of footy role and the coach. It's just a no-no. And if you can't, I know there's some clubs that think there's nothing I can do. It's a no-no. It's really, it's such a huge job, footy operations, that if you're trying to do multiple roles, you won't do them well, and unless you're almost full-time. So director of footy is such an important role. And for me, the director of footy needs to be across the whole football program, which will then ensure that the club, the senior club and the junior club, have a touch on the whole program. So what I see is having, your men's head coach underneath that person, your female coach as well. You'd have a junior coaching coordinator. So, because obviously you've got so many different, it might be different age groups, but having a junior coaching coordinator that isn't one of the coaches, I think, is important. And then also an Auskick coordinator reporting into the director of footy. And you can see, I know that this looks very simple. To set this up's not that easy, but and then underneath you have your assistant coaches, your runners, your volunteers and parents. Team manager, sometimes team managers in a structure that I've worked with and with other clubs that are quite large clubs, sits in underneath the head coaches or the coaches. Head of recruitment, some clubs can do that, have the time for that, or have enough people or a subcommittee to do that. And sports trainers need to be considered as well. So this is just one structure. Keen to get some ideas from other clubs, what they think about this structure. And it might be that this structure is where you want to be. We want to be there here. So let's have the structure set up, but put placeholders on some of these roles if you haven't got people for the role. So yeah, we want a director of footy. So we're going to have that in our structure. At the moment, our senior coach is doing both, but let's make sure that down the track we're planning to set ourselves up to be a club of choice, to have a touch on our whole program across Auskick all the way through to senior football. And this is not about taking control. It's not about you taking control of the juniors, and then this is a power struggle. This is how the best programs in the world are set up. They have a touch on their whole talent pathway all the way through to the senior footy. Keen to get some thoughts on that. Is anyone running with a similar model or got some questions?
Yeah, we've got a similar model. Basically director of football, but a lot of the coaches and the trainers and all sorts of stuff. So from a junior level, they sort of sit off the coaching group in that space. So, but yeah, definitely coaching director works. It's just a matter of finding the time. Unfortunately, you've got a lot of the coaching director in our situation is also coaching a team as well. So finding time to be able to juggle that and get across to all other teams is the balancing act. But the structure itself does seem to work. So yeah.
And Zach, is that right across from Auskick all the way through to seniors?
Not sure the Auskick structure. We work pretty closely with the senior footy club, but we actually haven't had a whole lot of time to be able to spend with the Auskick program as yet. Something that is on the list of things to do. We sort of do a lot of cross pollination within the junior club, where the 15s or the 16s might train with the 9s and the 10s. And then some of the 11s or 12s might train with the 16s as well. So a bit of cross pollination, and then in that space, as well as getting the 16s up to train with the 18s throughout the year too. So that's working well, but we need to do a bit more work from that Auskick perspective.
Yep. Oh, that's great, mate. That you're doing all of that stuff. Exactly what we've talked about. It's just about extending that, isn't it? I guess so. It then creeps into the senior club, but you've obviously all got to work together on that and that piece. Anyone
Yeah, it
else?
does. It works. I think the senior club actually spent some time with the Oz Kickers a couple of weekends
Right.
ago. So
Awesome.
it is happening, but yeah, we need to spend a bit more time on it too, just to formalise it, because it's a little bit ad hoc at this point in time.
Yep.
So
Yep. And I guess the more formal approach you have, and it's like anything, and the best plans that you have, the better the plans that you have, and the better structures, the more success you're going to have. But it's by biting off bits and pieces. Actually, it sounds like you've made some huge inroads. It might be that some of the clubs here, this is where utopia, but what I'm talking about in this structure, but just developing the relationship and the cross-pollination piece could be stage one. And then I don't know how you've done it, Zach, but is that sort of how you've gone about it?
yeah, pretty much it's just open communication between the junior club, the senior club, and actually getting more in touch with the Auskick program itself. But open dialogue, open communication. For a long time there was a bit of a gap between the junior club and the senior club. But I suppose Toby and myself, it's what's happened in the past happens in the past. So it's about looking forward, and we're not successful from a junior club perspective without the support of the Auskick. Same as the senior club. Senior club can't be successful without the support of the junior football program. So it's got to work together. They have to all handshake, otherwise, it's not gonna work.
No, that's great to hear, mate, and great that you've made heaps of inroads in that space. And I guess one of the things that I probably haven't touched on it enough, but if there are relationship issues, and believe you me, I've seen some challenging ones, and I know Brett has too, some really challenging ones over time. Everything can be overcome. And I think if you are having relationship issues, don't sweep them under the carpet. Talk to Andy, talk to Brett, talk to Maddie, and that's what they're there for, to support. If there needs to be conversations, tough conversations, or if you need someone to facilitate a conversation, I'll be available as well if that's needed. Someone from outside with fresh eyes, happy to assist. But I honestly think you have to open dialogue, have to have tough conversations if they're there, and put it on the table around, if there are some historical issues, get them out on the table and try and work through them. And it might be that the junior club isn't ready to trust the senior club yet, or vice versa. This, senior club's been harshly treated by the junior club. It works both ways, but at some stage, that everyone, individuals, need to realise that those relationships are so important for the longevity of a sporting club that's so important to your local community. And if those relationships are based on personal issues or issues of the past, you got to look past them. And I think if you need a third party to come in and facilitate a conversation, I think it's really important. I'm sure, Brett, Andy, you've had to facilitate some of these conversations in the past.
Oh yeah, that happens.
Yep. So it's I think if there are relationship issues, let us know, and let's try and work through it. So there isn't much left in terms of that's a bit of a summary of. I've got some other tools too. So just quickly, just some other tools that I've got. A calendar with some tools, some checklists. I've got an MOU template too for clubs. I don't know, some clubs would probably use the MOU template that AFL Victoria has, but I have some other information that can go along with that. Please reach out. I'm happy to supply you with anything that I've got. And that also goes back to the club culture and values piece. If there's some stuff that interests you in this space, and I've got templates for surveys, templates for you to run your own workshops and run the process yourselves. Very happy to share anything that I've learned over the years and forward it on to any club that might think there's some interest there. I don't know if anyone else. We're going to finish early. I don't know if Bear or Andy or Maddie wants to say anything just in terms of tonight, but it was really just an opportunity for me to share with you what I've learned over the years, what I've seen when I've worked with other clubs who are doing this stuff well, and hopefully you can take it back to your clubs and have some conversations with the committee around, okay, are we doing any of these things? And if you're not doing any of them, then you're not going to end up with players in your senior club, or the amount of senior. It's actually almost lucky that you're getting those players if you're not doing any of those things. If you're doing some of them and you think, no, we really aren't, you need to probably step it up and find some more help and get stuck into it and spend more time in that space. And I spoke about it before. I think making a deliberate effort to allocate resources in your budget, to allocate, like resources, money in your budget, allocate positions in your structure to junior transition, to junior to youth to senior transition. Put some people in place that are responsible for that piece of work and hold them accountable to the job, but give them the support and resources that they need to be successful as well. That's probably it for me, Brett. Is there anything else, any questions from anyone or anything you want to add, Brett?
Yeah, Trav, can you just, I think you might have raced over that checklist right at the finish, some of those resources.
Oh, yes, of course.
Are pretty important to clubs. There's a lot of information here. We'll get this presentation out, but some of these transition checklists, some of these, discussion points around June liaison officers, I think it's pretty overwhelming as a club volunteer, particularly club leaders that are on this call right now, just to think, wow, where do I start?
Yes.
There's basic steps, which if we can provide some of these templates for clubs to go back and discuss at committee and think, well, this is an opportunity for us. And we may have something, as Zach said, it seems ad hoc, and that sort of criticism, that's being honest, is what Zach said is happening at Healesville. But if that was formalised in some way, but to formalise things sometimes for us as volunteers at club level, it's like it freaks us out. Seriously, how many policies can we have? So it's trying to make the pathway more conducive to future senior players, footballers, both men and women. And I think that's what we need to really be mindful of. We start an under-10 competition this year. We want to make certain that we continue to build on that under-10 girls competition and bring more girls into our pathway all the way through, because that's where our growth's going to come from. And Andy talked about the 160 Oz kickers who are leaving the program this year and the unders program that AFL Vic discussed with us today. We want those 160 players playing in outer east juniors next year. That's our goal. We've got to do that. Otherwise, we're not doing our job. And part of it is our support to clubs and the support that the clubs then provide back through that Auskick Centre.
Yeah, no, good point, Brett. I think again, this is all best practice, but as I said before, try and bite off things that you think you can do easily. I'm sure there's some small wins and some easy wins there. But yeah, this is a template of a month, an annual calendar. It's just a reminder for each club that, in January, you might be doing the follow-up invite phone call. And I'm sure clubs are already doing this in an ad hoc basis, but it's just making sure that everyone's on the same page and the whole committee's got to touch on the whole thing. And the right people are doing the follow-up phone calls. Quite often it can be the wrong person, and it could actually also be multiple phone calls, and messages get lost and all sorts of different things. I noticed in January, it's funny how they say relax time off. I'm not sure that really happens, but that's the only month we really get these days in footy. But February follow-up invite phone call, potential 17 players or under 17 or 18 or whatever it may be, senior players to assist with Junior Rego Day. So I think you can see a bit of a flavour of, it's just a checklist at each month, at each point of the things that you could do, but you can create your own calendar. And it might be, in the first year, it might be not as much as this stuff because you haven't got enough staff or enough committee members or volunteers to help. But it's a starting point, Brett, and it's just a bit of a checklist. Okay, who's done that? Have we done that? If you spent some time, I think also if the senior club had it as a running agenda, so a transition to senior footy club piece, and it's in your agenda, say treasurer's report, your treasurer's report, your secretary report, whatever it may be. If this is a running standing item in your agenda, then you're actually holding yourselves accountable to the things like, how are we going with the calendar? Have we done this? Travis, did you do those phone calls? Have you followed up? When are we having the information night? what's happening. I think that's just a small thing too that will just help with some accountability around some of this stuff. And again, just do what you think is actually you're capable of in the next, I guess, 12 months, and don't try and do it all at once. And if I have overwhelmed you, I'm sorry, but yeah, this is just more best practice information for you. Is there any other questions about any of that? I'd love to just hear from some senior clubs. If there's anyone there from the senior club, just around if you're having some challenges in this space, and whether you think some of these things are doable for your club.
Yes, Ben, go, mate, go.
Go for it, Ben.
No, might need to pump up your volume. All right, mate, no worries. Just while Ben gets his audio fixed, the question I've got to probably particularly the junior clubs, I'm talking to AFL Vic today, how can we best support the promotion of your club through schools and the schools that are related, particularly if you only got a couple of schools in your region, you've probably got great relationships, people work there, you're probably well connected. But if you're not, how can we help support back through AFL Victoria? So if there are particular events happening in schools that we can actually promote the club of the region or the town a little more through that, how can we help support that? I'd be really keen to know that. Don't need to know now, but if anyone's got any ideas about how you may do it currently, because the schools is obviously the very first feeder into an Auskick program, and then once we capture them, the idea is to hang on to them all the way through to the seniors.
I know some senior clubs do a lot of work in that space, Brett, and actually do a big clinic day at schools. And I'm sure you've seen it too. You know, some clubs do it really well. Senior, junior clubs go to the school and in conjunction with the AFL, run a clinic and wear their club colours and all those types of things.
I'm just keen on the feedback, so maybe bring it to next Wednesday, which will ask the same question: is are we getting enough cut through? Are we providing enough knowledge to clubs that these things are happening in schools? You know, we're going to bit of a stronger media presence this year. So how can we help support what's happening in schools so as clubs and Auskicks can actually work a little closer together so the flow into juniors? Just not an answer for now, but maybe next Wednesday.
Yeah, it's definitely, I know it's definitely an issue in terms of some clubs don't even know which schools are allocated to their club either. So that's a communication piece, isn't it, really, between the AFL and us and the clubs.
Yeah, ours are really strong. We got great feedback today
Right.
from AFL Victoria,
Yep.
but
Awesome.
Andy and I are interested in the feedback from the junior clubs. I mean, how could we assist better?
Yep.
That's we being ourselves at Outer East and also AFL.
Very good. Ben, you go for it, mate.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah, no worries. So, yeah, look, some really valid points there and some good points. And over the years, having been involved with the junior club, we've seen that a lot of the things that you've mentioned tonight we have implemented at various times, but ultimately it all just comes down to the resources.
Yep.
You know, you touched on that as well. We're struggling with numbers this year for people to help implement a lot of those things, but they're great ideas. It's good that you keep refreshing them because it brings us back up to the top and what needs to be important. I guess one positive that we've done this year is we do have 2 of our senior coaches coaching under 14s, and that's fantastic. It's been really well received, and everyone's getting something out of that. So
that's great, man. That will bear fruit for sure. Those things are really important.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and I agree, Ben, that you know, again, like I think I've said it a few times, but we might not have enough volunteers for some of these roles that I'm suggesting. Just, I guess that might be where you're aiming to be one day, and yeah, just as much engagement that you do with parents, your community, and even just developing a strat plan or values the more engagement you have, the more interest you may have of people wanting to volunteer their time, and the more engagement you have with your people and your community and your stakeholders, I think the better. And that does help with volunteer recruitment as well. Are there any other questions? I noticed people have been taking notes through tonight, but I definitely will send these slides through to Brett. Also, very happy to take a phone call offline. I'll give my details to Brett about any of this stuff, and happy to help clubs. And I know Maddie's eager to get in there and help clubs as well. So thanks so much for your time. If there aren't any other questions.
I have a quick one, just if I can.
Of course.
We've changed the age groups obviously this year in juniors from 17s to 16s, and this might be for Andy and Brett more than anything. But has there been any drop off in the connection there? Because the fear we felt as a club was that we would lose players potentially down the road. Have we got any evidence that we have or haven't?
David, we've pulled some data. We'll be able to present that next week. That's what that specifics is. Today's more about the broader piece. We've still got some work to do, but we'll be able to present some data on what we've lost, what we haven't lost, gains in and out. So as in, transfers out from our juniors to our seniors, and surrounding competitions as well. So we look forward to presenting that next Wednesday if you can come along, and it'll be in person, so we can actually ask probably a few more pertinent questions. Online sometimes it's a bit clunky.
Yeah, it is harder to engage.
Yep. Understood.
Thanks, Dave.
Brett or Andy, I suppose potentially we talk about the association with the primary schools and stuff, but did AFL Victoria mention anything about competition from other sports? Have they got any initiatives to try and tackle the rise from soccer or from futsal or basketball, that sort of stuff?
I think what we gathered, and it was initial meeting today, Zach, was this transition from Auskick into juniors has sort of been a bit clunky, and they tried a couple of come and try days in December last year, which Andy's experience and others said it's probably not going to work. November, December, people have been tired. So this unders program, which they would pick up at the finish of Auskick and flowing into. So they're really concentrating on their own business at the moment, as opposed to, they're probably looking at other sports, but they didn't share that with us directly. But this unders program, which will be a bridging program transition between Auskick and juniors, once rolled out, and there's going to be a day and a few more information will come out to clubs about that. This will help connect Auskick centres and junior clubs even more formally. And there'll actually be a day where people who are playing Auskick, boys and girls who are playing Auskick currently, can come along and experience a bit of a small-sided game type effect. Hopefully we'll have more information next Wednesday, but if not, there'll be certainly more coming. Andy, I think it was sort of back end of July, start of August was a day down at they're thinking of holding it at Kilsyth and having it on a Friday night maybe, and just bringing everyone together to help with that transition and understanding of what a junior club looks like next year. If you want to add any more, Andy?
Yeah, I think we're going to try to get it at the start of August because we want to hit while the iron's hot, and that's whilst we got I know we got finals on at that time for the juniors, but it's going to be a Friday night probably, and we want to try to engage whilst all the excitement of finals and that stuff's going on. Because once you leave it till November, December, people they just forget about football. It's cricket season, it's whatever other season, summer season. So they tend to put it at the back of their mind. So if we can get it whilst it's still in people's minds, then we may be able to kind of get those players across from Auskick to the junior clubs and give them a bit of a taste of what playing junior football is like and the enjoyment of it all. I also like to mention that, like we talk about primary schools a lot, but I think we should be targeting high schools and explaining to the kids that you can play football, you can do your VCE, I should say, showing me age. You can do your VCE and you can have a part-time job and you can have a girlfriend or boyfriend. That football and sport is a good release from all that. So if you just put all your eggs in one basket, and just study all the time, you'll burn yourself out. So being able to play sport is a good outlet for their stress levels and stuff like that. So that's something that I've kind of been looking at, that we need to get in schools and just talk to them and explain to them that you can do these sorts of things. I think we had a player that plays at Hawthorn, AFLW now, Bridget Deed, and she was doing her VCE as well as doing like elite sport, trying to get into the Hawthorn Football Club, and she was able to cope with both of it. And in fact, she says that playing footy actually helped her with her studies. So, yeah, that's just one thing that I think that we can do as clubs, is get into the high schools as well as the primary schools.
Absolutely. And can I just jump in there? You'll find that the AFL will not do a lot in that space. So their focus is on primary schools. So it is up to leagues and clubs to lead that piece for sure. Yep.
So sorry, Zach, I didn't answer your question directly, but no, there wasn't a lot that they talked about other sports, but they're certainly looking at bridging programs to capture, particularly the Auskick to junior. And as Trav said, maybe discuss next week how we can capture some of this high school stuff ourselves. Maybe there's some initiatives that we can put together as a group that we talk to AFL Vic about funding. Might be high schools competition. School sports sort of dropped away, particularly in most regions now. Even unless you're playing APS, AGS, or ACC footy, boys or girls, there's not a lot of EIS or SIS or other public school footy anymore, unfortunately.
Agree, and I think
I think Brett, appreciate it. It's one of those things that's hard to really. We find that from a junior participation perspective, the biggest competition is coming from soccer these days. So it'll be good to understand if surely the AFL Victoria recognise that. So what are they doing to potentially either curb that or even work with the soccer programs to potentially try and leverage both sports, but it's a big gap at the minute that we're finding. The trying to get the competition element and the competitiveness and participation from one to the other is quite a bridge.
I think you'll find a lot of basketball and soccer particularly start younger. Sort of 5s and 6s.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, the AFL starting to talk about, when they, and this is this unders program between Auskick and juniors, is like a bridging program. So they're trying to challenge both those sports in this case. And it'll only be the first trial they do this year in this sort of July, August period. So, get some data out of that. But that's at least an attempt by them to dive into that earlier space. And maybe we need to look at as Outer East in our junior competition. I mean, what is our starting age group? We all sort of set by this national standard, but other competitions have gone beyond that, started them earlier as well to challenge them. So maybe there's options there for us in small-sided games and the like too.
Yeah, cool. All good.
Ben, I think you've got another question, mate.
Yeah, I have. I just want to share a story, and that's because it might relate to some of the clubs. We were very fortunate that it didn't look like we were going to get an under-18s team up this year until Scott Tonkin, who's actually in this meeting, was the under-16s coach up at Olinda, and he stepped up and could see that it wasn't happening. And the person that was going to do the under-18s, a fantastic club person, but of an older generation. And the very fortunate thing we had that was Scott, having coached the 16s the previous year, which are a lot of the 18s this year, he developed that relationship. He was relatable to those guys. And I think without that, we wouldn't have got that up this year. So I guess the story behind that one is that, you do need to look at who's coming through. Although the gentleman that was going to do it, heart of the club and all the best intentions, he was just more old school, whereas Scott, could definitely relate to the guys, and the guys could relate to Scott more importantly. So that's been a fantastic transitional for our club.
Great stuff, mate. It's fantastic. They're great stories, and I think they're the stories that if we get to share them in the right forums, we can really learn from each other and how. And there's all sorts of different models that we've all seen across our times at work. Just in terms of also, Brett, I just want to add, the AFL have been doing some work with some leagues as well, and I know it's not everyone's favourite, but AFL nines and potentially doing some mixed competitions with high schools and clubs in the pre-season around and doing AFL nines, or it could even be just practice matches or whatever. But it might be an opportunity to get some local schools involved in some small-sided games of footy, and then almost linking them in with the clubs and providing the players with information about, hey, come, this is our club, these are the colours, this is where we train. And I know the VAFA did that this year, and I know Southern Footy were trying to get something over the line as well, and that's probably going to come this year, next season. But I know that that's an opportunity as well, or an option. Any other questions?
You've done it, Trev.
All good.
You've got there.
Okay, awesome.
I'll quickly say thank you on behalf of Outeries to Travis from everyone. Thanks everyone for attending tonight. We look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday in person to discuss a little bit more of the intimate detail about top end age groups for Outeries and seek feedback next week. Won't be decision time, but it'll be certainly seeking feedback from clubs, and obviously talking about the 18s and the 19s that we ran and trialled this year in 2 separate competitions. What's been the feedback? We'll be able to provide, as David from Manny have requested, some data about player losses, I guess, or perceived player losses that we thought was going to happen, and where we've been able to hang on to majority and actually have some good wins along the way. But thanks, Travis, for your presentation. Thank you for everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday. And thanks again. Travis, anything else to finish with?
No worries. Let's end with one thing. So you take one thing out of tonight. Seriously, if you can't put your hand on your heart and say that you're doing the work, then you need to, I think as a club, you need to have some tough conversations amongst yourselves and your committee about, we've got to step up in this space, because it's not going to happen by itself. You've really got to step up. So if you can take one thing out of tonight, concerted effort around this. If you're not doing it, you're not going to end up with a pipeline of players coming through, and you're really missing out.
Terrific. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Trav. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Cheers. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks.